welcome to all of you tonight. Cam K, your wingman here on GeForce TV with the NASCAR Pinty Series Power Hour. I guess we'll just call it the Power Hour tonight, not specific to the NASCAR Pinty Series. But thank you guys for tuning in once again here on the channel. Talking about all things NASCAR Pinty Series. It's pretty quiet right now, although we're not expecting a lot of things to come out until we get the schedule, which is expected within the next couple of weeks. I know they were aiming for end of November, beginning of December, so hopefully we'll be able to get the schedule out and then we can talk all about it. A couple of things we can talk about. The first little bit there, which is that on the Racing It Out podcast with Todd Lewis and Caitlin Patrick, they did talk about the potential of changes to the schedule. Now, obviously, the people within the know of the NASCAR Pinty Series, that would be Caitlin Patrick and Todd Lewis. Now, Todd had some of his beliefs that they're going to be possibly increasing the amount of races. I know that there's some competitors, some team owners in the series that do want to see that happen. I think 14, 15 is the max we could probably do. Whether or not we actually get to that point, that would be a little bit crazy to actually think of. This could be a very good start for the off season if we get the news that there's going to be some changes made, some additions to the schedule. Of course, there's long-standing rumors that we're going to see some tracks come back to the series, including the very missed Riverside Speedway out in Nova Scotia and Antigonish. It'll be very interesting to see whether or not that actually does happen. Antigonish was the track, and I think with us going out to Newfoundland as well, there's a natural idea to get out there and go and do those two races. I have no idea whether that would happen. Logistically, I don't know how feasible it is to do at the same time, but we go out west for those events, and we already know that we're going to go back out west to at least Sutherland, at least Edmonton next year. We don't know about Sutherland yet, but for sure we know of some races that are going to happen. So when the schedule does come out, I think that we are going to see some based off of what Caitlin and Todd said on Racing It Out. They believe the schedule is going to be pretty much the same as to what we saw, possibly some additions. We know Granby was talked about, and there was an article that Autodrome Granby was going to be added to the schedule for 2023. Obviously, that would be another dirt race, but one in Quebec. So that would be an additional race if they don't lose anything. Of course, it's all up in the air whether or not that's just actually happening yet until we get confirmations from the team at NASCAR. So obviously, schedule news is going to be the hot topic for the next couple of weeks. But we also have a little crew of NASCAR Pinty Series drivers that are heading down to the United States to race at the Snowflake and the Snowball Derby once again for 2022 at Five Flag Speedway. And let's get you some of those names, actually, that we're going to be seeing at the Snowball Derby. We'll start with Alex Gannett here, who is going to be running the 30 car for Rhett Jones Racing, and he's out at the racetrack today testing for the Rhett Jones 30 car. A little bit of a good-looking Mustang out here. It'd be interesting to see if Alex Gannett will end up doing a bit more in the States this year. The way it does sound is that he does have the possibility of doing additional races. Oxmoor Ford being on this car. Moto Illimite's longtime sponsor. Expect to see him probably run this 30 car in a pretty good run, I would expect. I mean, I'm not sure how much experience Alex has had running in these specific late models, but I think he'll do a pretty good job. He's a pretty good race car driver. So Alex Gannett running the Rhett Jones Racing, getting to be up there and race with a guy who's his teammate essentially this weekend running the Snowball Derby in the 30 is going to be Noah Gragson. So Alex Gannett is also going to get an opportunity driving this number 30. And of course, Terry Jones has had Canadians in his ARCA program for many years. Dominic Van Wingeren, Grant Quinlan, and then of course most recently Amber Balkan has driven the 30 car in the ARCA Racing Series for the full season. So they have been a good way of getting Canadians into racing in the States. Alex did comment that on his news for the Pinty series that there are options for him to go down south and race as well. Let's take a look at your entry lists for the Snowflake and the Snowball Derby. There are some names that we want to pay attention to. Obviously, you've got your Cup Series names and Eric Jones and Brad Keselowski, but how about a couple of names down? Yes, that's right. Our man Brandon Watson in that number 9 for White Motorsports. He is going to be heading down to make it into the field. Now, it's going to be a really stacked field this year, as it always is. There was an announcement today, though, that Chandler Smith is no longer going to be in the event, so he is no longer going to be a part of it. But we do know, again, we see Noah Gragson. That's his teammate, the teammate of Alex Gannett for this weekend. Gannett going to run the Snowflake. But again, you have to make it into the big show. That's the biggest thing about all of this. And Brandon Watson had a tough race last year. They had mechanical issues that were plaguing them. But I expect he'll come back, and he's going to be the single star from the NASCAR Pinty Series in the Snowball Derby. Obviously, we've got some other Canadians in here. Cole Butcher in the 53 out of Porter's Lake, Nova Scotia. He is also going to be in this race, but he's, of course, not a NASCAR Pinty Series driver, but another Canadian that we get to watch along. Now, where we want to look is the Snowflake 100, and we're going to start right at the top with Glenn Stiers going to be in his number 0. Now, Glenn might have a tough time making it into the field here. 57 entries that he's got to try and make his way in. And Glenn hasn't been a racer in late models that often, so he's still quite new to it. But hopefully Glenn will be able to make it into the field. And just to have Glenn down there, have the White Motorsports team out there is really a great thing. We're going to be able to watch those guys out there. We'll continue along the list. You've got names, familiar names down here. Brittany Zamora, Johanna Long, JoJo Wilkinson, Augie Grill. And then right under Augie Grill, it's our man Kyle Steckley, who's going to be driving the 22 APC ride down there. Kyle Steckley will also be in the Snowflake 100. He'll be up there with Glenn Stiers and Alex Gannett as well. Let me take a look there. Alex Gannett also being a part of this. Jet Noland, Bubba Pollard is going to be one of the names to watch. Stephen Nasse, always somebody to watch when you come to this race. And, of course, you can't count out another Canadian, Jarrett Butcher, brother of Cole Butcher in the 54 out of Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Be somebody else to watch as we continue on this weekend. And it's nice to have such great Canadian representation at this event. It is a prestigious event, one of the most enjoyable. Last year we got to be able to have the Stickers and Scuffs podcast on Trayton Lapsovich. Trayton Lapsovich is 32 late model. Actually, Trayton was hoping to get into this race, unable to do so. They didn't have the partnership that they were hoping for. Really good partners that Trayton has on his side here, but just wasn't enough, unfortunately, to be able to make it down there for the Snowball Derby. And we know that Trayton definitely would put on a show down there. I'm hoping in the future we'll be able to see Trayton and maybe Caden Lapsovich get out there. I'd like to be able to see Caden get an opportunity to run alongside his brother. If not in the Pinty Series or APC Series, definitely want to see him compete at the Snowball Derby against Trayton as well. I think that these guys could do really, really good if they were able to get that opportunity. Cleanup business here on the NASCAR Pinty Series Power Hour. We also have, here we go, YTW Sip says, I have a not-so-crazy Pinty Series silly season prediction about a race team. Kyle Steckley to drive 22 Chevy Camaro for 22 racing full-time. It'd be a great idea, man. I think that Kyle definitely would. I asked Kyle towards the end of the season what his plans were, and he did say that they are undecided right now. It's all going to be depending on the funding as that's the story really with everybody in motorsports, is that you need to have that funding. I think if APC is backing him, absolutely. If they want to go for a full season, sure, but I think he's definitely going to go back and do a full season in the APC series. Whether he's going to do a full season in the late models at Delaware again, that'd be interesting to see. But again, it's all about that funding. And I think we know that Kyle Steckley clearly has the talent to do this. Whether or not he's going to have a couple teammates, be very interesting to see. Obviously, we know Trayton Lapsovich pretty likely would be back in the 20 car as long as he's got the funding. And then Alex Tagliani again in the 18 car. I'd be very curious to see if they do go for a fourth entry again. We did see it at Delaware Speedway with Ray Morneau Jr. I don't know whether or not Ray has the funding to be able to do additional races. He has one of the biggest fan bases in all of the series. So I wouldn't be completely shocked if we do see Ray Morneau at some point, whether he gets an opportunity again for the finale at the Fall Brawl, or he gets an future opportunity to run maybe more races in the APC series this year. That would be great. Obviously, winning the championship in the late model division at Delaware Speedway bodes very well for him for the full season in one of those avenues. It's just about whether or not they can, again, get the funding. We really don't know a lot of what's going to happen in terms of the field for next year. There's still a long way to go here in this offseason within a lot of different teams. We really don't know what their plans are for the season. Obviously, we know one with Alex Gannett. We know pretty well that Paille Racing is going to stay in two-car operation 96 and 27. Not officially confirmed yet that Marc-Antoine Camerand is going to be back in the 96. I think we can really expect that is what's going to happen, winning the championship last year. We already know that Andrew Ranger is for sure back. I think we can put it safely in the bank that DJ Kennington and that LP Dumoulin would be back. Of course, there were sponsorship deals. I believe they signed multi-year deals back in 2020 and 2021. Multiple years for Castrol Edge with DJ, Wayfield Canada, if you're unfamiliar. And then, of course, with the WeatherTech team and LP Dumoulin. Everybody else kind of up for grabs. We really don't know who and what is going to happen this offseason. I'm very curious to find out names like Brandon Watson, Gary Clute. Obviously, Kyle Steckley would be one of those names. Sam Fellows is another one of those names. That would be very interesting to see what happens with them heading into the offseason. But one of the things that we wanted to be able to do is not just talk fully about the Pinty Series when there isn't news to cover. So we're going to go into doing some fun stuff, and I want to have participation. If you guys are more than willing to participate in this, I want to hear from you guys because we have a couple of options here. We can do a NASCAR Pinty Series grading, which was something I was going to do a couple of weeks ago. We just we didn't get into it because we got a lot of people coming into the chat, and we had a lot of engaging conversation, which, of course, if you guys have topics, we definitely can go over them. If you guys have questions, absolutely ask for sure. But if you can, also leave a like and subscribe to the channel. That always helps. We really appreciate it. Cannot see how Paille and Chevy would let him switch teams this year anyway. No, it's not going to happen. Camerand and Ranger are hooked at those at the Paille team with Chevrolet. That's not going anywhere. Mark is integral to the success of that team. And Andrew, I think Andrew, we were lucky to have as a part of it. Whether or not he is back after this year, I mean, we only know it was a one-year deal, so I assume they're probably looking for additional funding as well for Andrew, and that's just common with any off-season moves. Definitely, as Jim says, yeah, hit that like button, that thumbs up button. It really does help us. It helps the channel. It helps the show out, and it definitely gets us more noticed on YouTube, and that definitely is what we'd like to do and like to have. So what we're going to do is actually it says Kyle wouldn't go to any other team because his dad. Yes, that's right. Scott owns 22 Racing. That's absolutely YTW Snips. That's right. He wouldn't go anywhere else. But What I'm saying is that we don't know if the funding is there. So he would likely, if not, he's already said that his focus would be back doing APC series full time again. I could see that. I don't know why you would make a couple starts in the Pinty series and then go back down. But again, it's the almighty dollar, right? And that's the most important things. I think with him going and running the Snowball Derby as well, give him a little more experience. He finished second in the championship, so I think that's what we're going to get into right now, Jim, is we're actually going to go into the grading for your 2022 field of the NASCAR Pinty Series. And what I mean by that is we're actually going to use a little chart that I've made here on Canva. And we're actually going to go through here and let's just see if I can move that over a little bit. Let's see, did that give me enough? So a little bit backwards. Let's just go a little bit backwards. There we go. So you got the grade here. All right. So we got drivers going and competing within the season. Obviously, we take a look at the competitors that did not run full time. They ran specific racetracks. So we're not going to go in and start talking about those drivers that ran one or two races because it's kind of hard to judge them off of one race. However, we're going to talk about drivers that ran the full season and where you think that their grade is. Obviously, it's based off of a letter grade, A, B, C, D. And then if you say it's an F, you would give them an F for how they ran this year. Obviously, we're going to look at the full-time competitors. Not everybody that is listed as full actually was able to run every single race, but their intended schedule was a full season schedule. So we're going to start off with Glenn Stiers and the Stiers team. Coming into the season, Glenn Stiers, obviously dirt racing legend, owner of Ashwegan Speedway, the man, the myth, the legend. But started off with a really, really rough start. And unfortunately, White Motorsports, was able to communicate a lot with them this year. They had a lot of mechanical problems with White Motorsports, failures, the car just not being ready. And one of the things that was mentioned to me was that Glenn's car just really wasn't where he was hoping it to be. There was a lot of part shortages at the beginning of the season, so that obviously will play a role as to why they struggled. Did I expect that he was going to come up and light the world on fire? No. He actually had an amazing mini battle all season long with Brian Cathcart and Wallace Stacy. And the three of those guys had a lot of fun, I would think, towards the back of the field, running into each other at times, but having a little battle within. And Glenn had a couple of races where he actually got up into the higher teens and never really got into the top 10 per se, but did have some runs where he showed that there is some speed in that zero car, and he obviously can wheel a car. That's not his issue. I think it was just a tough season mechanically for them. So if you were going to grade Glenn Stiers' season, I'm curious what you would have gone with, because for me, it's a solid C. And the reason it's C is because I didn't expect it's not the worst season ever in the world, and it's not the best season in the world, and it's, of course, its first season in the series. So for me, I'm going to go and say that Glenn Stiers' season would get a C. Not crazy, not amazing, but decent. Absolutely just decent. There's a lot of things that go into a full season run, and JP Bergeron was somebody who came in again through the offseason. Maybe not a lot of people knew outside of Quebec who JP Bergeron was. Had some great opportunities to run in ARCA last year and came in with the ultimate team, really, in Dave Jacobs Racing. And Jacobs hasn't had championship winning equipment. They haven't been up front since basically Andrew Ranger and them separated. They had some great runs with Pete Shepard, great battles up front, but not to the point where they won championships. And JP Bergeron and that entire Festi Drag organization that came aboard with the one car has shown to me that they have a lot of potential. Battling week in and week out to the lower end of the top 10, early teens. Didn't really get to that point where he was up in top 3, top 4, top 5, but I expect that that's going to come with more experience. One thing that is definitely noticeable about JP is that he has a lot of backing. He's got a lot of support, and they have a lot of coverage on FestiDrag.tv of JP Bergeron, this entire organization. So one thing I want to thank JP for is bringing the Mustang into the NASCAR Pinty Series. That was one thing that I don't think we expected that we were going to see. And it really does help seeing that we're going to have a really, really good run. So RightTW Snip says B for Glenn Stiers because he did what he could with the equipment provided. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. But I would say, it's a tough thing to do. And I don't know, honestly, YTW, I don't know what is it hard? This is like a question I could have posted, I guess, last week. Is it harder to go from dirt to asphalt, or is it harder to go from asphalt to dirt? Like, trying to get the adjustment period there. Jim says, even though he owns the track and is from the dirt world, I was very happy to see first practice. I think correctly, he was a top 5. So as a rookie, I say C. Also got caught up in a lot of others' crashes. Absolutely, he did. It was a tough pill to swallow, actually, for him, I think, at Oshweekend, honestly, because I think he had top car speed. He was in the top 5 fastest in practice, and then qualifying, the race came, and they had a really tough time. But if I'm going with JP Bergeron in this round, I'm going to actually go with a solid. I'm going to go with a solid B+, because I didn't expect the world. He had some solid runs, and really did quite well in the run that in the cars that he had. Again, seeing these places for the very first time. Again, they're very limited time behind the wheel on these cars and very limited time on these tracks as well. I think JP is going to get better, of course. A rookie for sure. YTW says it's hard to go from asphalt to dirt. Okay, so that was my question. That makes a lot of sense that way. Now, the next one here is the Velamo Chevrolet for TJ Renamato. And this is going to be hurtful because I thought so much of TJ's season a year ago. He ended it on a very good note. But this year was an awful season, unfortunately, for TJ. They had multiple huge wrecks, and I would say some of the biggest wrecks in the entire series this year. He had one out where he got, I believe he got turned out one of the Western races. He ended up missing. It was the first race at Sutherland, missed the second one because the car was so damaged. It wasn't able to make, I think, Edmonton. And then huge wreck at Delaware, huge wreck at Chaudier. Pretty bad season. And TJ has had moments where he's been very impressive. I mean, we've seen him. He's gotten top 10s. He had what period this year running into a position to get the top 10s. But unfortunately, mechanical failures as well. And that's another kind of saying of the White Motorsports had a really tough year with issues mechanically. So unfortunately, but at the same time, you got to go say I can't say I was expecting that it was going to be up throughout a top tier season, but I'm going to go with D-. I think the only reason that I'm not going to go higher or lower is there's really not much else that we could say. I mean, TJ does so much for this series, so much for White Motorsports, but if we were to talk with him about kind of the luck that he had this year was just awful. It seems like anywhere he went, if they finally got the car running right, he had a mechanical failure. And then if he was trying to stay out of the way, he got wrapped up in somebody else's wreck multiple times. He got hit by somebody and then got involved. I mean, Delaware, that wasn't even his fault. He just got run into. It was a tough season. And for sure, I mean, I think TJ, again, got that top 10 last year at Delaware. Great run for him. Ran and had opportunities to do that again this year, but unfortunately, it was just a very tough season for him. And the White Motorsports team, RGC Sports, will definitely need a comeback in 2023. So we continue on here on the 3 car, because Dominic St. Cyr, Jake Sheridan, and Kenny Schrader only did the one race. Those aren't going to be included here. But Brett Taylor, oh boy, I love Brett. I really do. And this was hard to watch. Brett had so much promise a couple of years ago, and we know that he definitely has the capability. He's won before. He did it in amazing fashion, beating team boss Jason Hathaway at Jukasa a couple of seasons ago. So he has all the pedigree to win, but for whatever reason, it was not able to be out there. He had mechanical failures right off the start of the season. They had a massive crash a couple feet from the start-finish line at Eastbound Park, and then was unable to run most of the rest of the season, pretty much following. And ran CTMP in the fall, but that was it. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to put it at an F. It was a really tough season for Brett, and I don't know where Brett's going to be in the future. He says he's not sure. I love this guy. I think he is such a down-to-earth guy. I really hope that he does get the opportunity, if he's not going to be in the Pinty series, but maybe gets the opportunity to run RS1 next year. I mean, I just want him to have an opportunity to get that confidence back, because he definitely can win. He definitely can. But very, very sad and difficult season for him. We go to the EHR team, and this is where this is going to get really tough here, because you have first off, that's not even correct. They weren't in Dodges, they were in Chevys. Rafael Lessard and Ray Jr. Cordemosh. Now, I'm going to first start with Ray. Ray had a bit of a breakout year this year. He was much better on pace this year, stayed out of a lot of trouble, and got his best ever career finish. And for Ray, that's a huge deal. Again, he's another guy. He knows what he is. He's not going to be a guy that's battling up there for wins, but he puts his money in, and he's a hard worker. And to get your best career finish after, you have to remember, he was out of the series for years, and he's come back, splitting the time, not getting the full ride, just running the road courses. And to get your best career finish, it's why TJ had such a good season for me last year, because it's not easy to go out there and do it. And for me, I'm actually going to put Ray's season at a solid B. And at the same time, I think I've got to go with a solid B as well for Rafael Lessard, because it was what I kind of figured he would. He would run towards the front when he had opportunities. He struggled at times, but there's a couple races where he was running right up in the podium spot. Obviously started the season on the podium, battling for that win with Marc-Antoine Cameron, and ultimately they made contact, and it led to Trayton Lapsevich sneaking by and stealing that win. So I'm curious what people think, because there's split driver in this, but they both had different experiences. You have a guy who's running mostly the ovals and a guy who's running mostly the road course and street courses. And at the end of the day, it's not an easy feat to split a car between two different drivers. So the team themselves did an amazing job. I don't know what the future holds for either one of these guys. I'm very curious, in fact, because Rafael Lessard, of course, came into the series a couple years ago and dominated every start he was in, but last year just didn't have that dominating performance. Not once, really. And I don't think that's an equipment thing. I think EHR is still some of the top equipment in the series. I think it was, again, the field was just so much tougher than it was the year before. Brandon Watson and the White Motorsports team. This was kind of the guy who led them this year. We kind of figured that would be the case. Brandon really is one of the best and young inexperienced in terms of the series, but for having a ton of experience within racing in general, Brandon Watson certainly showed that he has a lot to prove here and belongs in this series. Very much went out there and won pole positions, led laps. Where his biggest downfall is the road courses. And that's really, I think, a fault of the Ontario racing system, is that there really isn't options in the lower divisions to run road courses. You have to go the sports car or open wheel route if you want to be able to run those. And there's not really a stock car series that does road courses. Now, I don't know about the Ontario Sportsman Series, if they would ever get an opportunity to run on a road course and they would do it. But Brandon, by far, had an amazing season, capped it off with the win at Delaware Speedway, and was the dominant car there. Really, really had a dominant Tricor Chevrolet. And for me, at the end of the day, if you look at the rest of White Motorsports, he was the one that was consistent all the way throughout the year. Now, he did have some run-ins with people, and it led to a bit of a downfall. Now, can I say that he's not in the A range because he did get a win? He did run up front. He finished in the top 10 in points. But at the end of the day, is it worthy of an A grade because he didn't run as well on the road courses? Well, I think he did improve on the road courses. We saw at ICAR him battling in the top 10. He wasn't completely out in those races. He's definitely going to learn. And that's one thing that we can definitely say about Brandon, is that he's definitely increasing his knowledge. And I expect that he's going to be even better if he is back in 2023. 100% he is going to be somebody that you have to watch again because of that fact. He knows and he learns very, very well. He's dominated the late models across Ontario. Absolutely dominated them. And when it comes to grading Brandon Watson, it's kind of a hard decision because there is so much that you have to consider here. Is it at the end of the day, did he perform to what the equipment gave him? Yes, he did. Brandon did have some mechanical failures. That's 100% true. They had this really big failure in practice, motor failure in Toronto. Weren't even sure if he was going to make the race, and they were able to get that all together. They rented a motor out. Brandon did have a couple. But that performance at Delaware shows that Brandon is not a fluke. He is going to be very good in this series if he continues to have an opportunity to run it. One thing that you also have to think about is he was technically a rookie. Did he outrun several names in this series that I expected would be a little bit better? Yes, he did. He got into a couple squabbles with some guys, which he'll probably need to rectify. I think he'll need to fight back. I think that there's a pretty obvious one out in Western Canada with Tagliani that probably will see our results on the racetrack. But Brandon is the Ontario counter right now. DJ's obviously been really strong. Trayton's been really strong. But Brandon's coming on there and he's adding another Ontario name to the list. And, of course, getting that win in a clean fashion over Donald Teej. And he didn't dominate Teej at the end. Teej could have moved him. But Donald raced very clean towards the end, and I've got to go with at least an A- here. And I would think that A- is fair for him because he got a win at the end of the day. I think it does drag him down that he did have some poor races, but Brandon continues to show that that he really is able to compete. We're going to skip over Kingsbury right now, even though he did run a couple more races than some of the other guys on this list. DJ Kennington. Now, DJ Kennington is always a name here in Ontario that no matter what you do is going to be somebody that you want to watch. Now, I think one of the things that DJ thought was that he needed to be in better shape to race against the field. And he cut a ton of weight and came to the track as a different driver, for sure. And I think when grading his season, it's very hard not to give him a good mark because he was in that championship battle right to the very end. He was in it with Tag. He was in it with Cameron. Off of consistency, got that win in a side-by-side battle with Andrew Ranger in one of the races at Sutherland Automotive. Didn't get another win in the season, but ran consistent all season long, having one of his best runs all season, staying out of trouble. And that was the biggest thing for the entire Kennington team was consistency. They had a horrible time in 2021 with mechanical issues on road courses and on the ovals. And they did an incredible job improving over the year. It is not an easy thing to do when you've been in this series for so long. We're dating back to, 1996, maybe 1995 for DJ Kennington. And he's still been able to week in and week out put on a good product. And you have to think about it's not the only car coming out of his shop was not just his own. He had other drivers that he was preparing cars for, or he at least was renting cars out for. And, DJ being able to be out there and battle for a spot within the top 5 with Kevin Lacroix, with Alex Tagliani, with Marc-Antoine Cameron, to a point where a couple races before the end, you thought that maybe DJ could hold on to the championship lead based off of the penalties that were assessed. Ultimately, those penalties were rescinded, and it kind of was a moot point. But DJ Kennington, once again, got the brand new scheme this year. Right now, currently, is a finalist on the NASCAR Pinty Series Facebook group on the community page. Is a finalist for a paint scheme of the year. And so for me, I've got to give him an A. What a comeback in what was and what has been a tough couple of years for DJ for consistency purposes. Very solid season for him. If we continue on, Alex Tagliani. Well, Tag is always a tough one. He is. I always expect Tag's going to come out and rattle off 3 to 4 wins. I mean, he has the talent that he could do it. We know Tag's been busy. They had a big change this year on Tag's crew. Scott Steckley was the crew chief. And amazingly enough, it did lead to him being in that championship battle once again. Tag got a big win in a dominating performance. He flew through the field in the second Sutherland race. Absolutely flew through it. Is it enough, though? And that's the thing. Is it enough for Tagliani week in and week out? That's the tough thing. Is my expectation of a successful season for Tag finishing second or third, because he's done that so many times. But when you look in comparison to how he did to, say, LP Dumoulin, it was a very impressive season for him. I would say that this was another typical Tag season, kind of quiet. His road course efforts were very strong. He just never seemed to get the win. I think once again, Tag did get involved in a couple of squabbles with people talking about Brandon Watson being one of them. But when he was on, he was on. That's one of those things that, to me, when grading a driver for how their season was, I would put it up there as definitely one to watch. Does Scott help him? I think so. The drive that he had at the second Sutherland race was pretty phenomenal. And Tag really, like I said, he is getting a little bit older. That's 100% true. He's got a lot more competition in the series than he used to have as well. So we know the Viagra car is always driven hard, no pun intended. But I've got to go and say that it was a typical Tag season. And for me, that's going to be a little bit of a mess. I was hoping that with that change, he would actually pull off more than the one win. And yes, he was battling for that championship. Unfortunately, his season ended horribly with that huge wreck he was involved in. Really hard damage to that car. He was okay. But Tag's off the track is a proven star. He has continuously put so much effort into his e-karting facility. We were lucky enough to go to that this summer, and it is a top-notch facility, 100%. And he is doing amazing things in terms of networking for that business, continuing to help his partners out, continuing to do much for those partners on a weekly basis. Not something easy to do, but it's something that is crucial in keeping a partner on your car, keeping that business relationship open. So for me, I'm going to have to go with a solid, just a solid B for Taglioni. And again, that's because at the end of the day, it was a typical Tag season, and he ran up front and just didn't get over that typical Tag season. I was just hoping for a little bit more. And I don't know, maybe there's a bit of a changeover with as well, switching from a different crew chief. And if Tag is back with Scott next year, I think they'd probably do even a little bit better. It just depends. The next guy on this list may have started off the season in fantastic fashion, Trayton Lapsevich. But man, Trayton had one tough season here. They talk about sophomore slumps, man, and Trayton definitely was feeling it. Chaudier running up front, the mechanical failure, dropped out of the race. That's disappointing for a young kid like him. He was definitely going to hit the ground running right off the start by winning that first race. You would have expected that maybe there was going to be a bit more in terms of running up front, and that just unfortunately didn't happen. He was involved in, he had a big wreck at CTMP, had to come back from that, and perfect example is at Eastbound Park, he had the opportunity to win that race. Marc-Antoine Cameron pushed him up. I think Trayton's smart enough to know that, hey, he'll pay it back. They had great opportunities throughout the season. Trayton, again, it just seemed like it was a sophomore slump. Never really got back up there, and FBM coming on that on board that car, definitely a big help for him. And maybe we see a little bit different Trayton next year. I mean, the sophomore season's off, and we know that guys that have their sophomore slump, typically they'll come back. They bounce back from it, and in a big way. For me, Trayton Lapsevich, I'm going to have to go with, again, yes, he got a win. He got a win right off the start. He got that and stole that win from Stuart Friesen at Ohsweken Speedway, winning the biggest race of the season. So ultimately, 2 wins on the year. Can you call it a slump out of 13 races to win 2 races? Well, the in-between was just so tough. But I'm going to have to go with an A- here because he did go with 2 wins on the year. While he had the bad luck, he still got up there. He still won 2 races. He had to beat Marc-Antoine Cameron, Rafael Lessard. The biggest win there was that huge win at Oswego. That was the biggest purse that they've had in a NASCAR Pinty Series race in years. And he won it. So I guess for the bad kind of races that he had this year, we'll bring it down a little bit, but an A-, solid A- for Trayton Lapcevich. Now this is a controversial one. This is Andrew Ranger. Now Andrew had a win this year, early this season. Pretty competitive most of the season. But again, what's the common theme that we've been talking about with White Motorsports this past year? Unfortunately, just mechanical problems, and it was just part failures, and it was little things. And talking with the team members specifically, saying like it was this little piece that went wrong here, it was this little piece that went here. It really does hurt to see a guy who's so friggin' good have issue after issue. And that happened a lot this season. And I mean, that in a way is what I like about the Pinty Series. I like that it has those moments where, hey, anybody could break at any time. We saw every single driver this year at one point seem to have a break. Whether or not it was DJ, whether it was Gary, whether it was Alex, Marc-Antoine Cameron, they didn't have a perfect season by any means. They had a couple breaks this past year. So that's what I kind of like about that is in the Cup Series, those cars, you don't really get the mechanical issues as such. Sure, you get suspension or crash damage or tire issues, but not a ton of issues with part issues. Because cars are so similar, right? Everybody using the same type of parts. Well, I love that you've got that situation around here, but Ranger really, aside from that win at Chaudier, couple of tough races, close battles. I really like the combination with him and Caden Lapcevich, though. I think that they're bound to strike gold. Absolutely. I think with Joe Chisholm continuing to spot for him, solid choice. I think that they're, again, a good combination. When I talked to Andrew at CTMP, Andrew was just happy to be there. And for a lot of last year, for a lot of the off season, we didn't know if Andrew Ranger was going to even be in the series because we really didn't know if anybody would have a ride for him. And the last moment, JC Payet, Chevrolet, and they put that ride together with White Motorsports, and they're back at it for 2023, and it's a fantastic thing. I call him the Power Ranger, but I call him because he is literally the man. He is the king of the series. He is, no matter where, he is a threat to win. And I definitely think that Andrew is, for sure, bound for a solid season in 2023. 2022, I'm going to have to say it was a bit of a C. For what we typically see out of Andrew Ranger, it was a historically quiet season for him. And yes, he did have moments where he ran up front. He did have moments where he won. But it was just quiet. And I think that Andrew's not going to let that happen for long. He's going to get... And I really do, like I said, like combination with him and Caden Lapcevich. But I would love to see him and Caden go on the track against each other. That would be even more preferred. Honestly, I think Caden Lapcevich is a bit of a gem that we haven't got on the circuit right now. So we're gonna miss these last couple these rental drivers, Sarah Thorne, Matt Shirley, and Trevor Monahan. And even though MBS Motorsports and Daniel Bois did not make multiple starts this year, they are going to get one of my shout outs. And the reason they're going to get one of my shout outs is because of how they ran in those races. 100% MBS Motorsports is going to get an A+. Because for coming into a season where there was no expectations for that team, we don't typically see new teams like Pinty Racing come in and just dominate. These guys didn't have any connection to one of those big teams. Yes, they bought cars, successful cars, but for three friends to come together, build a team, and go and enter a race at CTMP, and then their very first race run up in the top 5, battling for a podium, battling for a win, was remarkable. And then to do it again in Toronto before having a couple of spins, and then again at CTMP's second race, it was unbelievable. Now, obviously, their Delaware race was a little bit different. They were not there to, quote, race per se. They were there on a mission. For, I believe it was, they said on the broadcast that they were doing engine testing. So they didn't use an oval car. Didn't have an oval car there. And it didn't work out very well for them. But I got to say that MBS Motorsports really did an amazing job for their first season. And now seeing that they're going to move into doing 6 races in 2023, they're going to do oval race. They're going to basically do the Ontario races. That is huge for a small team starting off like this. And to come in and put it to LP Dumoulin, Kevin Lacroix, Marc-Antoine Cameron, DJ Kennington, Andrew Ranger, to outrun some of these names was unbelievable. And I'm not saying that just because they're friends and they're great, that we know them and they've run our DAC call on the car. I'm saying that as like a Pinty's fan, to see a new team come in and do that was absolutely remarkable. And I'm hoping we get to see more of that this year. Hopefully their oval track program, they'll be able to do. We don't really know Daniel Bois on ovals as much. And for Daniel to come basically from retirement from this series, not been in the series in years, to all of a sudden announcing that he's going to run. And I remember them announcing that Daniel was going to run, and I knew of the name, but I couldn't remember when he had last raced. So a remarkable story for MBS Motorsports to come out and get a solid season in the races that they make, and now planning to double it essentially. Definitely props to them. But we've done a good chunk of the first little bit. Our highest season so far, Brandon Watson and Trayton Lapsovich. DJ Kennington, a little bit better of a season we marked because of his championship battle. Tough seasons for TJ Renamato and Brett Taylor, have them on the bottom so far of the list. What I want to shout out a little bit is the NASCAR Pinty Series community. Just search that name up on Facebook, and it is the fan group. And definitely really appreciate everybody that comes into that group and votes on the paint schemes. We've been putting up a paint scheme challenge the last couple of weeks. And really since the season ended, we've been doing this paint scheme challenge. And we are down to the final 3. And we'll give you a quick glance to the final 3 and who they are. So we've got Ray Monroe Jr.'s 03 that ran out Delaware Speedway. He was, yes, a single race, but yet this was voted in by his fans. Provincial Vodka Dodge for Matt Shirley. He ran 2 races out at Sutherland Automotive. And DJ Kennington, that 17 Castrol Edge Dodge, voted in as one of the 3 finalists. These 3 will be competing for the title of the most beloved paint scheme for 2022. NASCAR Pinty Series fan voted. Obviously, what's been really nice to see is the participation level from the fan bases. We have had the last battle with Brandon McFarland and Matt Shirley had 500 votes, over 50 shares of the post. We have added 500 new members to the NASCAR Pinty Series community page. We're sitting at 6.5K. Might be up to 6.6 by the end of the night. It's obviously been fantastic. It's also giving a lot of love to the sponsorships that are on these race cars because they're getting a lot of love, and we definitely want to see more of them in 2023, especially some of these names that we only got to see once or twice. Raymond Orr Jr. here in the 03 and the 28 of Matt Shirley. Congratulations to those three. Coincidentally, 2 DJK cars in the final 3. Something about those Dodge Challengers definitely have a solid look to them. Close battle. Glenn Stiers, Aaron Turkey, and Brandon McFarland also made the top 6. Unfortunately, they did not make it into the final order. It was close. 30 votes between the 03 of Ray Morneau and the 99 of Aaron Turkey to make it into the final. But unfortunately, they were not able to do so. Again, do yourselves a little bit of a favor and subscribe to some podcasts. Not just mine. The Stickers and Scuffs podcasts. Find us all on social media on YouTube, Anchor. You can find us on Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. We interview all sorts of competitors across Canada. Mostly we stick to our Ontario racing. Drivers from the OSS, NASCAR Pinty Series, APC Series, United Superstock Series, Oscar Hot Rods, Modifieds, Outlaw Midgets. Tomorrow it is Rob Hooligan Harrison who's going to be interviewed. Our episode will air on Wednesday. You can also check out Racing It Out with Todd Lewis and Caitlin Patrick, both, of course, from the NASCAR Pinty Series. Caitlin, the social media coordinator and content coordinator for the NASCAR Pinty Series, and Todd Lewis, longtime pit reporter for Canada as a whole. And, there's a lot of other great podcasts. The Wide World of Motorsports with our man James Jordan and Michael Wallace. And then, of course, the True North Racing podcast with Jomo Media and Megan Mitchell. Make sure you guys check them out. Of course, Race Time Radio is also out there. Definitely got to appreciate all of the stuff that they do. The Chisholms put on an amazing show. So definitely go out there, support your podcasts all season long. Give us a little bit of a thumbs up here on the YouTube or the Facebook chats. We really appreciate it. Helps us continue to build all season long, in the off season all season long. Hopefully we can have even more fun in the off season. We continue our tier list, ranking the 2022 drivers and how their seasons went. Full-time drivers, that is. We'll get into doing more tier lists and ranking the tracks in the series, ranking the races, and more as we continue on the NASCAR Pinty Series Power Hour on G-Force TV. I've been your wingman, Cam K. Thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. We will catch you all next week. Have a great